Uh, I want to welcome everybody here today. And today we are signing this very important piece of legislation. And let me begin by thanking Supervisor Wiener for his steadfast leadership on the sponsoring of the legislation that will raise the minimum age for anyone purchasing tobacco products, including electronic cigarettes, to the age of 21, and that will take effect on July 1st of this year. I know that Supervisor Wiener, along with his co-sponsors, Supervisor Marr and Cohen and Farrell, and ultimately the entire board had adopted this, and that I know that the supervisor is working very closely with our Department of Public Health, who has been documenting why it is so important to continue our efforts as a city, if not as a state, to continue restricting the access to cigarettes, particularly at younger ages. It is known to them, and it's also been advocated by groups like the Tobacco Free Coalition that's here today as well, and I want to personally thank them for their continuous advocacy. They are not just here in San Francisco, they're in the entire region, they're all over the country, educating us and working with our public health departments to make sure officials like us and Supervisor Wiener not only pay attention to the science and the data that's going on, but that we do our best to end the sufferings that is brought about by long-term smoking, that obviously is the cause of cancer and asthma and certainly heart disease, and that we do our best to educate the public in doing so, if not the industries that sell these products, and ultimately kids that are our families. When they're 18 years old and 19 years old, it's already shown, and I think the coalition has shown over and over again in our public health department that some 95% of long-term smokers had begun smoking at the age of at least 18, perhaps even younger, and certainly under the age of 21, and that these habits are so hard to end voluntarily. So that's why we have to go to many other fronts to try to do this. And that's why I think the Supervisor Wiener has founded a personal cause, but also a public health cause to join all of the supervisors together with the coalition, together with our public health department, our leaders, to make sure that we do what we can to end these diseases as much as we can, to make sure that we also reflect, as the mayor of this city, that we can save a lot of money if we were able to do this. The medical systems that we have to have in place to treat cancer and asthma and the heart diseases that go along with long-term smoking is an incredible expense to our public health. Obviously, the cleaner air, clearly with the coalition's work on families, the secondhand smoke impacts that this has is another critical reason why we want to do as much as we can to do this. And then I think we're on the eve, and I know Supervisor Wiener is already in contact with the governor's office, as we are, and also with the legislature, and particularly Senator Leno and Senator Hernandez and their work in making sure the state, which may be, hopefully in our minds, the second to join Hawaii, to end the sales of tobacco products unless people are at least the age of 21. That doesn't make it right either, that just because you're 21, you buy tobacco products. We'd like to end it for everybody. But hopefully with the adult level of age 21, that people make better health decisions for themselves and for their family. So I take this opportunity to thank the coalition. I know that in looking at the data, as they have done in working with us, there was a very strong sense too from the data that the smoking rates are higher among people of color, among the LGBT communities and other minority communities, and that we kind of link it with the very hard impact sales work that is being done by the tobacco industry in our minority and LGBT communities. And that's where we really have good data to show that the more we can do to educate our communities about this, the better off that we will be. So with all of that background, I want to say to Supervisor Wiener, you have again shown your good leadership. I'm going to give you the pen after we sign this. You seem to be accumulating more pens than anybody that I can. But also to say thank you for your leadership, and also with working with such important groups like our Tobacco Free Coalition group and our Public Health Department. Supervisor Wiener, I'd like to invite you up here. Say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be definitely giving that pen to the advocates and to our Department of Public Health for their really heroic work. Thank you for signing this legislation and for doing it in a way that highlights this critically important issue. San Francisco, for many years, has been on the cutting progressive edge of public health policy, whether it's around HIV or tobacco or lead paint, or sugary drinks, or whatever the case may be. We have always been in the forefront, and once again, we are in the forefront of what I hope will be a tidal wave of progressive public health legislation that will reduce and eventually eliminate tobacco use in this country. This is it's a huge problem. We have been involved in a 50-year struggle with the tobacco industry, an industry that produces a product that has absolutely no benefit whatsoever, and that kills 500,000 people every year. This is a serious issue. It's a serious public health crisis that continues in this country. And I'm just so proud that we live in a city where we can be on the cutting edge, where the politics of this city allows us in City Hall to make good progressive policy. I also want to say we know that we are up against a very well-financed opponent. The tobacco industry for decades has fought every effort to try to control tobacco use, back to when they denied that there was even any linkage between their products and the health problems that we know that they cause. We know that Healdsburg tried to do this, and they suspended their legislation after they were threatened with an expensive lawsuit by the tobacco industry. Well, we in San Francisco are willing to fight that fight, and that's one of the amazing things about our city. I want to thank the Department of Public Health. We sometimes don't realize how lucky we are to have the best public health department in the country that supports our efforts to make good law, that provides us with critical expertise, and it's just an amazing agency. And I want to thank our advocacy community for really giving us the political space to be able to do this. And finally, I want to, and I know the mayor alluded to it, we passed this legislation a week and a half ago, Tuesday of last week, unanimously at the board, and 2 days later, the logjam in the state assembly broke, and it's just amazing what happened, that we even had Republicans voting to raise the tobacco purchase age to 21 statewide, to pass Senator Leno's forward-looking bill to make clear that e-cigarettes are still tobacco, are still a way for people to get addicted to nicotine, and to allow for local tobacco taxes. So that was a huge step forward. These are all going to the governor's desk, and I hope he'll sign them. So thank you, everyone.
All right. So are we ready to save more lives? All right. I'm going to add one more reason, and it's not in my notes. It's not anywhere in the legislation, but it's about my history. About 10 years ago, a mayor asked me to pick up cigarette butts as Public Works Director. And I want to say to all of the Public Works staff that work so hard cleaning the city, if there was less cigarette butts you had to pick up, that would be another good reason to sign on this legislation, right? Yes, all right. Today's date is
11.
9/16. That's it.